Hello again, guys. Today we're going to talk about transmissions and failures. So, when your transmission fails on you, it's not a very pleasant thing. It's actually scary because one of the most expensive components to fixing your vehicle. However, sometimes what could be a very scary situation is oftentimes something very, very simple that you might overlook. So, story. While I was driving home a couple nights ago, my transmission popped in from drive to neutral as I'll accelerate, get back off the the shoulder onto the beltway. If you had that happen to you where your transmission will pop into from neutral, if you had that happen where your transmission was in drive and it just popped into neutral and it's illuminating, if you can see right here, you see how I can go from park to reverse to neutral to drive and the light will show an appropriate light. However, what I was experiencing was this, and you probably saw how the car just immediately unloaded the engine. See that? So this is what I experienced. I was driving the highway, I was doing 60 miles, and then suddenly I got this. The only difference is I kept my speed, so I was able to keep pressure on the pump through the lines up until I got to last mile to my house. So there's going to be a simple fix if you have this issue. So let's go underneath, let's go and park the car and I'll discuss it. Before I get started, a symptom I had was my shifter. If you pay attention to it, do you see and feel, or rather hear, how crispy it sounds? It feels light and smooth. What I was experiencing was the shifter was feeling very sticky and sluggish. Like, it was also very, very muffled. And what happened is, a few weeks ago, I drove through some water. There's a flooded road and I had to pass through it. What happened is water got into the shaft for the, let me get underneath the car. Alright. Up here is your inhibitor switch or your neutral safety switch. Right here is the nut that holds the switch on, and there's a shaft that goes in the transmission. This is what changes gears in your transmission. So what I had happen was water got back there because this car is a 2006. So from the factory they put some sort of lubrication, something on there to keep water from ingressing in there and causing problems. Well, it's old and dry, so water got in there and it was good and fine and dandy up until it started drying and started rusting and started attracting dirt particles in there. So therefore it made it sticky. So when it got sticky now, it was not engaging drive in fully. So what happened is drive was not engaging fully. So that's why my transmission was popping from drive into neutral, and it tried to go back down into gear and then it popped right back out because of the vibrations. So today I'm going to show you guys how you guys can clean that and potentially save yourself thousands and from getting taken for a ride at the mechanics. So the first thing we want to do is, because we're going to be messing with that switch, first thing and most important thing, chalk your wheel. Alright, you're going to be messing with the inhibitor switch and the gear selector on transmission. You don't want this thing to roll back on you when you disconnect it. Now, depending on what kind of vehicle you have, your tools are going to differ. But for me, if you have a Montero, I'm going to need a 10mm socket, a 14mm to get the nut off for the inhibitor switch, and a 12 wrench to play with the switch, actually the shaft, sorry. You guys can't even see that. Let's get some light in here. There we go. Much better. All right. So first thing first is make sure your vehicle is chalked and can't move anywhere. Otherwise, you're going to be a pancake. So I'm going to laugh at you. No, I'm not. So this is going to be tight. So let's go ahead and take this off. It's going to be a little tough to do this while holding this camera. You see how that thing is moving? That's why you want to keep it. And sorry, that's why you want to make sure your thing cannot move, because you will be underneath here. Alright, let's go ahead and take that off. Alright. Alright, say these nuts and bolts obviously. And now you should be able to take off your switch. Actually, not the switch first, but the gear lever. So now your gear lever is out the way, alright? Next, I have 3 10mm bolts that holds down the switch itself. Now keep in mind, I did this already yesterday, but I was going to do it again because I wanted to go through a couple more times and get the dirt out of there. So I'm going to make a video because this should be able to help somebody out here, because sometimes the most scariest problems in your vehicle is often caused by the most simplest of things that you can actually take care of in your driveway, and for relatively expensive too. So let's go ahead and take off that. I've got one more bolt, actually 2 more. So what I use to get that water out of there is I use some carburetor cleaner and I use some Croil. You can use WD-40 or whatever lubrication, penetrant lubrication to get your shaft clean. But you can probably see how it looks kind of shiny right there, and that's from the Croil that I sprayed on last night. So now we'll go ahead and go take this off. Now if you haven't messed with your thing in a long time, it will be a little harder, but mine came off easy because, you know, like I said, I messed with it yesterday. So this is your shaft. Can you see that rust right there at the bottom? This is what's causing your shifting issues and preventing your transmission from going fully into drive. So what I did is I took some carb cleaner and I sprayed up there. So I'm going to do that now to demonstrate. Let me move my tools out of the way. Alright. Now here's the next part. I'm going to take a wrench of some sort, and I'm just going to basically, you see why you want to have your car chalked? Because I'm going to manipulate this. And you're basically just moving this around. And what you're doing is you're breaking that dirt. You're breaking in that formation of dirt and grime. And you can kind of see it, it's kind of moving. Not as much because I cleaned most of it yesterday. See how I kind of cleared off? Alright, I'm going to do it again. I do apologize, it's pretty awkward holding this camera because it's one of those selfie tripod stick things. Alright. And yes, that's basically what you're doing. You're just pretty much playing with this. Full range of motion. Spray some more cleaner. And now, make sure that's not our O-ring. Might have to replace that sooner or later. It's actually O-ring right there. I'm going to actually, there's our O-ring right there. I'm going to replace that. Let me pause this video. Alright, found my O-ring kit finally. So, it's close to what I have. So basically what you're going to do now is you're going to just match your O-ring. So, here's one that's kind of close. That looks to be about spot on, right? It's a little bit thicker, but it'll get the job done. And that's what we're going to need. I'm going to go look for one more, just in case. This looks like it's a little bit thinner. A little thinner, but also incorrect diameter. Let's see, maybe that one? If I can get it. Yeah, it looks about the same thickness as the other one. And so just put it on top and just matching it. Cool. It's not a 15 by 2. I'm just using that blank space right there. Alright, so we got our O-ring to match. Let me go ahead and put it in the car now. Alright, back to what you're doing. Before I put this O-ring up there and deteriorate it again. Quit rolling. Give one good, well, it's actually dry now. So now I'm going to take my coil penetrant. So this is what I use. You can use whatever floats your boat, but I'm using coil. And I'm just going to spray some in there, make sure you get inside a crevice. I'm going to take my 12mm one more time. I'm just going to exercise it. Make sure it gets in there. Now you kind of see some little dirt is starting to work its way out. That's what I want. Let's spray that out. We'll work it out some more. And basically, you're just working it out until you get as much dirt and grime out as possible. Until it's nice and free. So now that's good. Now we're going to go ahead and put back everything on. So first I'm going to start with putting back on my, actually, before I get too far, let me put my O-ring back on. Very important, that's there. Alright, so you can see my new green O-ring is in place. Now I'll go ahead and now put on the freaking neutral safety switch. I'll go ahead and put in my bolts now. One there. One here. Oh, here it bites. Yep, it's biting. Alright, cool. Alright, now you go ahead and put everything back together. Now I apologize that my hand isn't very steady because it's very hard to do all this with one hand while I film. Come on. Very awkward. There we go. Oh yeah. Alright. Let me grab a spanner wrench real quick. This is not working out for me. Alright, that spanner wrench should be a little bit more reasonable. Now, we put a new O-ring on there, so use it with the old one. It went straight on with no issue, but this one is a little bit fatter and newer, so I'm going to go ahead and install it back on. Nice and snug. Don't over tighten this. Remember, this is transmission. If you break something off in there, there's no space, at least in this car. There's no space to be putting a drill in to drill that stuff out. Well, actually there are right-hand drills, but you don't want to risk breaking it in. You don't want to be one bolt from turning a 20-minute job into a 2-hour ordeal, or maybe even a 2-day ordeal. But sometimes that's what's going to happen in life. Alright, nice and stuck there. Not left-handed, so it's a little awkward. Alright, nice and stuck there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put back the little thing that holds the lines from moving. So I'm gonna set the camera down. Right there should be good. Okay, I'm gonna set the camera down right there. So go ahead and get the lines captive. Kind of hold that in place, nice and gentle. Put back my 10mm. Stop running from me. Let's see. Let's try again. Now my camera's running. I don't think my stuff likes me very much. Let's try that again. Orient my bolts. Can't really see what I'm doing. Here it is. Come on. Don't you do it. Don't you run. Don't you run. You're a bolt, not a fugitive. It's gonna run. Alright, I'm gonna get my second hand up in there and just have a feel for it. Oh, there we go. I feel it's trying to locate the hole. It's trying. There we go. Alright, we're in. Sometimes you need two hands in there. Go ahead and tighten it down. Okay, needs a little more right hand. There we go. Alright, nice and snug. Now that we've got the inhibitor switch back in, we'll go ahead and put back our gear selector lever. Want to make sure it goes back in the same spot where you got it from. This is very important. You do not want your lever up top to be saying park, but the transmission is in any other gear, because when you go to shift it, it won't. Well, you probably won't even get your car to start first of all, and if it does, when you do go to select gears, you're gonna think you're in drive and then back up through someone's wall or something, or it's gonna do something you don't want it to do. Now we're gonna go ahead and put back on the bolts that holds the gear lever in place. Now it's a little dirty and whatnot, so I'm gonna make sure it's on as perpendicular as possible. Here we go. Gets a few threads started. Now I'm gonna go ahead and swap over to my 14mm. Alright, go ahead and tighten it down. Now, it's very imperative you're very careful with this one. You most certainly do not want to strip this this stud, because this is on that shaft and that shaft runs into the transmission. So do not strip it. Be very careful with it. Now we're done here. So now what we did is we cleaned and lubricated the input selector shaft to free up from binding and any rust and sediment that's causing this selector to halfway go into drive and pop out of us while driving the road. This is a safety concern, so I just want to share this with someone in the hopes that it would solve your problems and prevent you from spending an exorbitant amount of money at a mechanic's or having an unneeded headache. So let's go back up, let's clean up, and let's go up top and verify our repair. Alright, let's go verify the repair. First I'm gonna get some tension off the wheel chock, because I'm not gonna be able to pull it out once I kick it out. But also we want to make sure that the car will start, which it does. Nice and smooth. While we're up here, now we're gonna go ahead and check each of the ranges. So I'm in reverse, neutral, drive, and only let me go up to 2. All right. Get some tension off the wheel chock. I'm gonna chock my truck instead. And we'll verify the repair. Highway speed. Make sure this transmission holds. Differentials from 4.3s to 4.9, so I'm not actually going 69 miles an hour. I'm going closer to like 62. But as you see, our temperature, our transmission temps are up to operational temperature. I said that so bad. As you see, our transmission temperatures is at a normal operating temperature, so right now we're at 65 going on 70. Light is holding steady. We don't see neutral trying to flicker into life. Alright, so our transmission is holding strong. I don't see neutral indicator light trying to flicker back to life and pop me back into neutral. I'd say this is a very good success for repair. So with that being said, if you drift through some deep water, the lubricant that protects the input shaft from water ingress is old and dry like my car. Now you know if your transmission's popping into neutral for no reason and you suspect that your transmission is good but something else is a mattress in the road. So if you suspect that, if your transmission is popping into neutral for no apparent reason, instead of taking the mechanic, why not go underneath and check that neutral safety switch? And even before the neutral safety switch, check to see if your input shaft is dirty. Because like we said before, sometimes the scariest repairs on the vehicle is often caused by the most simplest of things. I hope you enjoyed the vehicle. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, leave any comments if you have any questions, and I hope this helps out a lot. One more thing I forgot, that O-ring that I put in earlier, that green one that you saw, it ended up being too thick. The first time I attempted to check my shifter, it was very tight. I actually ended up replicating the very symptoms that I was teaching this video about. So I realized that O-ring is too thick. So when you're replacing O-rings, make sure you match them as close as possible. Other than that, that's pretty much all I had to add to the video.